guys have to stop writing about ordinary people. Yes, this is the story of an unremarkable woman and a more or less ordinary life, although I suspect that there are very few of us who, looking at our own lives, would insist that they are ordinary lives. But much of my point here, I think, and one of the things I wanted to achieve starting out was to give voice to a character who, in her own life and in literature, is not often given voice.
Well, that's really a noble thought, but as an author who has to hold the interest of your readers, does that mean that you don't need suspense, you don't need drama, you don't need conflict? How do you, as an author who has already a really wide following, how do you manage to pull that off?
Well, that's the contrarian in me. On the surface, the smart writer would say, oh no, don't write about this character because you're going to have to search for drama and tension. And the contrarian in me said, well, then I'm going to find drama and tension in the most unlikely place I can think of. And so the challenge is to take this ordinary stuff, to take this familiar sounding life, the life of a woman across the 20th century, a middle class, not particularly attractive, not particularly dramatic character, and find what's extraordinary in that.
Can you imagine your book being made into a movie?
Oh, we all imagine that at some point.
No, I mean it seriously, in the sense that it is a challenge, isn't it? I mean, all of us, feel like we have these stories inside us
Yes.
that deserve to come out. Many of us who don't feel that we've really gotten our own voice,
Yes.
want to have our voice represented.
Well, actually, a reader has already made the suggestion, which I thought was startling good, that maybe not a movie, but certainly a one-woman play, because this is very much a story of voice. This is a single woman's voice. To paraphrase John Cheever, sort of standing naked, speaking into the dark, telling her own story. And so maybe not Hollywood, but perhaps Broadway would be interested.
Okay, your main character is Marie Commodore, and she is, as we said in the intro, an Irish-American woman living in Brooklyn. Tell us how that connects to your own life.
I grew up on Long Island. Both my parents were first generation. My grandparents were all born in Ireland. My mother grew up in Brooklyn. My father grew up in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and all my relatives were from that area. So I never lived in Brooklyn, but visited there a lot. And what was more important to me as a writer was I have in my head the language of that time and place, not just the language of Brooklyn, but the language of that generation. And I think one of the things we all want to do when we write is to capture something that seems to be fleeting, to capture characters whose like we will not see again. So a lot of what I was trying to do through Marie's voice is also to reproduce, and there's subtle differences. It's not a hard twang. It's not any kind of other language, but there are phrases and ways of looking at the world through language that belong to that generation that I wanted to in some way capture and preserve.
And was that time between the First and Second World Wars and that place really important to your parents' generation, such that they reflected on it a lot? I mean, did you hear them talking about it a lot, about that time and place as you were growing up?
Oh, certainly. Again, this was the World War II generation, so that was the touchstone. Again, conversations in family gatherings and around the dinner table. Certainly the war was touchstone. It was their coming of age for that